pmnation.com.
Well, here's some news you could use. The Apple charger for your laptop, it also doubles as a hand warmer or a Bunsen burner.
All natural being. Warning, all natural being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full context psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Good morning, or if you're listening to the replay, good afternoon. I'm Brian, and if you're new to the All Natural Being Show, I want you to know that I am passionately dedicated. I remain wholeheartedly committed to one thing. I start my day and end my night, most every night, thinking about you, and sometimes the people circling in and around you. If you've been with me before, then you can rest assured my enthusiasm for unearthing who you actually are has not wavered a bit since the last time we spoke. Now, I'm not interested, nor should you be honestly, in the watered-down, inauthentic, herd-approved version of you. Who wants that for themselves? You're a force of nature. Why live a farce of a life? We're talking about the real you, the true you, the all-natural you at your core, the intrinsic, organic perfection. That is you, just waiting to be unleashed. So enough head games. Let's agree, right, just for the next hour, to boycott the BS. No more brainwashing, no more blind spots, no more amnesia, no more taking a back seat to anybody. You deserve to live your life at the pinnacle. You were born fully capable of leading a truly spectacular life. And it's my job to remind you of that each and every day. That's the line of work I've chosen, right? To turbocharge your brain, to prime your mind for the moment at hand, to get a hold of your head before the rest of the day does. Why is that so important? Because I believe the key, the one and only key to personal happiness, spiritual fulfillment, and professional success is to recall, revive, and release your inner superhuman, your all-natural being once and for all, right? Unleash the myriad natural resources that are hardwired within you. No more masquerading, no more hiding, no more living your life with all the free will of a piece of tumbleweed. If you choose to hang out for the show, your days of surrender are over. Self-imposed barriers, gone. Personal limitations fabricated out of fear, thing of the past. Hobbled soul, it's history. It's time to unleash your inner superhuman. All right, so I'm getting a couple texts. I haven't really figured out what that static is all about. So let me do a little bit of this while we're jumping in and checking out today's early morning meme. One of my favorites. Inauthenticity. Always, always, always creates unhappiness. So don't be a knockoff. All right, let me see this here. Let me just scroll through this, making sure the static isn't at my end. Of course it's at my end, right? I'm the one doing this. All right, I don't know if that's necessarily any better, but we'll give it a shot here quickly. Also, let me just try this. All right, if you guys want to give me a text and let me know that that's worked out any better, that would be groovy. Thank you very much. So we go here. You know what I've had to do when learning all this stuff is I take pictures. I'm busy throwing Apple under the bus in the opening. I take pictures of everything the way it's supposed to be set up, right, so that I can go through and go, okay, so where does this one work here? And then this one goes down here. Let me see if I can clear some of the static. But that said, I still hear the heater going off in the background, so that may be it. Let me work on that a little bit. But let's jump into it just in case the heater will eventually cut off, and we'll be able to figure out what's going on. So I apologize for the static in advance. All right. So again, inauthenticity always creates unhappiness. So don't be a knockoff, right? We find more and more every day that if you're truly unhappy, it comes from not being who you really are, right? Unhappiness. It's like we're estranged from the mystery. We're estranged from the magic. That's what makes it such a challenge for us. Now, I'd like to share with you a question that really deals with being inauthentic? It's a question that changed my life. Now, I know that sounds over-the-top dramatic. Dun, dun, dun. But there really was an exact moment in my life, interviewing the rearview mirror of my police car, when I asked myself this one question, and it rocked me. It was this simple 3-word inquiry 30 years ago that changed it all for me. We've all heard that just before death, our life passes before our eyes. The lightning-fast inspection of our days. The overall analysis of our life displayed in like a mind montage of memories. A visual kaleidoscope of all that we've done and all that we've left undone. It's a bit ironic, really. All right, let me take just a second here to see if we can redo this, because I'm apparently still having a difficult time with this. So let's see if we can reconnect. And let's see if that comes back on the static a little more. All right, well, this is a great way to kick off Friday. All right, so let's see. All right, let's see. I don't know if that necessarily got any better. If you all can give me a text and let me know, and we'll jump into it and keep right on. We'll keep right on going. So we're talking about the question, the most powerful question, really, that kind of derailed the life that I had going for me, right? That made it almost impossible for me to continue with what I was doing. And it's really a bit ironic that one of the most powerful, life-affirming questions we will ever ask ourselves has to do with our final moments before death. When your lifespan flashes before your eyes, like a comprehensive, this is your life, you'll be forced, like it or not, to evaluate your overall performance, to appraise and tally your impact while on this planet, from crib to coffin, cradle to grave, far and wide, high and low, inside and out. Total it up. Did my life have true, deep, impactful meaning? Did I bring my A game? Giving this run my very best shot, pulling out all the stops? Did I live life to my fullest? Did I achieve anything of true merit? Did I matter, even for a moment, in the grand scheme of things? When forced to lay all of your cards on the table in those last fleeting instances of conscious awareness, when your destiny demands, show me your hand, what are you going to have to say for yourself? Have you squandered all the promise and potential that you were born with, hobbled soul as opposed to your inner superhuman? Confronted with the question of your own authenticity, were you an all-natural being or some store-bought, tchotchke, upholstered version of what you could have ultimately been? Did you live a life of watered-down days? Has the combined meaning of those days been damn near meaningless? All these questions boil down to one very simple yet intense 3 words. The 3 words that I was confronted with all those years ago. Is this skin bag of thoughts and wishes, feelings and fears, hopes and dreams, this cognitive carry-all I call a mind, was I me? Was I, my ego, the persona, the papier-mâché masks I wear to face the world? Was I authentic, true to my core? Or was I masquerading as a designer knockoff? The I, those things my ego tricks me into believing, those safety personas that I put on to whitewash my blush, always attempting to be accepted and approved by those around me. As the philosopher Jean Paul Sartre may have called it, my being for others. Or Heidegger, the philosopher, he called it the they self. Now, I still call it my committee vote or my always open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, public pincushion. Although that might be a bit wordy. I'm talking about the wardrobe of facade we wear, just wanting to fit in. Ask yourself, was I me? Was there any way to answer Beethoven in his Ninth Symphony? Could I call at least one soul mine? Could I lay claim to my own soul? Or in retrospect, Had I lived watered-down days, deluded and delusional, stymied by domesticated madness? We discussed yesterday the poet Gilbert's The Burning Furnace of the World. Was I overcooked by my search for confirmation? Had I baked myself dry? Had I become a bogus piece of plastic fruit? Fake flowers in a borrowed vase? Or did I grab my gift with both hands? Make my lot in life spectacular? In other words, was I me? In the closing moments of cognition, looking back over my days, surveying it all, will I be proud or plagued? Will my legacy be laughable or laudable? Will I smile like I mean it, or blush, bow, and shake my head in defeat? Will my life have been a force or a farce? Do you ever wonder about the ultimate in human potential? More importantly, about the true hard costs of ignoring and forfeiting who you fundamentally are. What price do we pay for refusing to employ our all-natural being, gifted by God or gravity? What's the penalty for turning your back, a blind eye and a deaf ear, on the gifts you were given? The gifts, the divine, however you define it. What's the cost of that? Now, the good news is, we don't have to sit around until our final moments to see this video in our mind, waiting to interview and score ourselves. As the philosopher Albert Camus put it, I shall tell you a great secret, my friend. Do not wait for the last judgment. It takes place every day. At the end of any conversation, a chance encounter, a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade, we can always take a moment to look back over the proceeding and ask ourselves, was I me? Did I take my inner superhero or superheroine for the full ride? Being human, according to the theologist Paul Tillich, means asking the questions of one's own being and living under the impact of the answers given to this question. So shouldering the burden of our own answer to the question, was I me? So, when I have to turn myself back in, will I drag my soul to the finish line, crawling, smiling, fully spent? Or am I going to go in hunched and hobbled over by the weight of all my should-haves? And when you think about it, it's really the only effective use of the mirror. Look yourself in the eye, and at the end of every day, and ask, was I me? Because I am absolutely certain your answer is going to echo throughout eternity. All right, we're going to go ahead and run to a quick break. And boy, I'm sure hoping I can figure out this static thing between now and then. All right, stand by. We'll be right back.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. How much longer will you let them hijack your head and your heart?
All right, well, if that intro sounded about as good, or as the voiceover here is now sounding about as good as the rest of it, I just can't figure out the static, so I apologize for anyone listening. I can still hear the just fine, just popping with static. I can't figure out what that's all about. So we're going to keep working on it. By we, I mean me. We're going to keep working on it as we move along. So stand by 1 second here. All righty. There was an article posted up in The Guardian, and although it's taken a little bit of flack from time to time, it's taken a little bit of flack because some people say, oh, it's a little too simple, it's a little too this, it's a little too that. But I kind of liked it. It was by Brawdy. She wrote a book that deals with the top 5 regrets of dying. Top 5 regrets. And what moved me about that was number 5. You can go with. Let me start at 5 and walk back down. All right, number 5. I wish I'd let myself be happier. Groovy. Number 4, I wish I had stayed in touch with my friends. All right, I guess I can go for that. Number 3, I wish I had the courage to express my feelings. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I don't really know about that one. I think you know, with your 20-minute victories, you decide in that moment where you're going to apply your all-natural being, right? You have to decide in that moment, how's this going to work out? But number 1 was the one that grabbed me. That's why I wanted to talk about it this morning and go back to the early morning meme of saying, inauthenticity always creates unhappiness. So don't be a knockoff. According to this author, according to her book, number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. According to the article in the book, this was the most common regret of all. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it is easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. Most people had not even honored, and I love that word, honored, half of their dreams, and had to die knowing that it was due to the choices they made or the choices they didn't make, right? Health brings a freedom very few realize until they no longer have it. So we talked, I think, last week about thought experiments. Imagine this thought experiment. It's hopefully for you dozens and dozens of years down the road, but you're sitting on your porch. And for whatever reason, you've grown quite fond of sitting in a rocking chair when you do. You're sitting in that rocking chair, looking back over your life, the things that you've done, the things that you haven't done. How are you going to score? If you had to do that today, how would you score yourself? If you're being totally honest, right? It's a thought experiment. Don't have to worry about it. I don't think Einstein was worried when he pictured someone riding on the beam of a flashlight, right? I don't think he was self-aware in that regard. Just an answer just for you. When you look back over your life, did you pull out all the stops? Did you bring your A game? Again, sticking with the Beethoven quote of a couple days ago, did you grab fate by the throat? And if you can say yes, God love you. You're further along than some of us. But for the rest of us, what can we do right now to make this the tipping point, to make this the turning point, for us to be able to say, okay, I'm going to make sure that when those rocking chair days come about, that I'm able to give myself a great grade, right? So this morning, how do we do that? How do we do it right now? 20 minutes after the hour, depending upon where you are in the world, whatever the time zone that is, 20 minutes after the hour, what can you do right now for the next 20 minutes so that when that rocking chair test confronts you, when you're forced to ask yourself, was I me? You're going to be able to go, absolutely. I gave it a totally full run. Brought my A game. Now, yesterday we worked a little bit on a list. We said if you had a tablet, you could write down some of the fears that you would like to erase. Right? And I know this is going back a little bit to law enforcement days. But for me, I had a tablet. It was about a foot long, maybe 4 inches wide, and it would flip over. And I always had some pens with me that I would carry around so that I could write down any of the evidence that I collected, any of the things that I saw. Sometimes even if you're patrolling a particular area, you're working undercover, you write down those things that just seem out of place. So imagine for a moment that you're going to do a little bit of journaling. You're sitting in that rocking chair. You're looking back over your life. What are the things that are blocking you right now from giving yourself an A+ at the end? And even though you and I both know, we don't have to wait, right? As we said in the earlier quote, Camus was right. I shall tell you a great secret, my friend. Don't wait for Judgment Day. Judgment Day happens every day, every moment, every 20-minute victory, right? So what could you do to make sure you get the prime grade? What are those things in your life right now blocking your all-natural being, blocking your ability to be a superhuman? Then, either on the left or the right-hand side, or maybe even down below, what are those things that you could do right now? Remember, it's a thought experiment. It's a mind game. What can you do right now to start chiseling away at those things on the list that are blocking your flow, that are blocking your ability to be that all-natural being? And if you're like me, you'll find before too long, some of them start to kind of like match up. Well, if I removed this, this would happen. Or if I did this, it would call this to fall away. But if your goal is to be authentic, your goal is to rebuild the relationship that we talk about all the time with that inner voice, that small whisper. Exercises like this, 20-minute victories like this, help to reestablish the communication with the only voice, with the only vote that really counts. Because you deserve your best thinking, not binge thinking, not the normal narrative, the normal dialogue that goes on in your mind. You deserve your very best thinking. No irritable brain syndrome. What can you do right now to make sure that the next time you ask yourself, was I me? You'll be able to answer, and you'll be very proud of your answer, right? And if you read through the rest of this article, you see there's not a lot that has to deal with what I owned, what baubles, what trinkets, right? The stuff that I had amassed. Number one, I wish I had the courage to live my life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So, on your list, what part of your life are you living up to right now because other people expect you to? What is it? Don't forget, you can hit us up, 331-684-SOUL, 331-684-SOUL, 7685, for those of you that are a bigger fan of numbers than letters. We're coming to you, as always, from the Metropolitan Co-working Space, beautiful downtown Aurora, the home of 14 Blends. If you're in the area, stop by. My friend Jim just swung by. Come on in. 331-684-SOUL, 7685. What are some of the expectations, right? What are some of the expectations that other people have for you that are keeping you in check? If we go back to this concept of being a pincushion, what pins are you currently holding on to that mark how other people want you to behave, how other people want you to be? What are your true feelings about who you are? If you believe me, right? We talk about you deserve your best thinking. Let's channel that right now. What does your best thinking say about who you are as compared to who you could ultimately be? Right? Put it down on the list. Now, let's go back. What things could you remove from that list? And as I said, when you remove some of those things, you're going to find that other things bubble up. It's like a Rubik's Cube almost, right? It's a Rorschach of a Rubik's Cube. As you start to move some of these pieces around, you start to move some of these ideas or outside opinions around, it loosens up some of the flow, right? Some of the imaginable power that you can tap into in the present moment, right? Taking that unimaginable power and absolutely seeing how it could work for you. As you start to move these things around, it presents themselves in a way where you can see a fingerprint of providence, perhaps, right? You can see those cognitive cairns, those things that line up in the moment to show you exactly how you should proceed next. Now remember, this is still a thought experiment, right? Part of this 20-minute victory. Still a thought experiment. And when you find yourself, as you will, trust me, I've done this thousands of times, you'll feel a sense of gratitude bubble up. Because as I've said almost as many times, your inner superhuman, it wants out. It wants released. So when you work, what would be like the combination on the lock, right? The Rubik's Cube. You work the combination on the lock. You work to slowly start, right? Michelangelo from yesterday with chisel in hand, all is well. When you work to chip away at the marble that's encasing your inner superhuman digs it, right? It's ready. Yourself, it's ready to be let out. It's tired of saying, oh, well, we need some soul training. Great. It just wants out. So the more you do this 20-minute victory, you line some of those things up. The more inclined that still small whisper is going to say, all right, I think she gets it. I think he gets it. Because let's be honest, after years of being ignored, and if not ignored, then at least after years of taking a back seat to everyone else's opinions, the life other people expected of you, after years of having that voice rejected because of the overwhelming committee vote, right, that circles around it, that inner voice is a little timid. Not timid in terms of what it ultimately is, but it just doesn't trust us anymore. Countless times it's called out to say, hey, did you think about doing this? Did you think about doing that? And we ignore it because we're worried how we're going to look. We're worried about how we're going to sound, right? We're worried about all those other things that people are going to throw on us when ultimately we have to accept it. Driving in this morning, I saw this big sign, right? Closed. Right there everywhere. Or not open for business, or will open, or the loading dock accepts deliveries at 7 a.m. Well, you're the loading dock. You decide when you're going to accept deliveries. We talk about outside opinion and conjecture, the good, the bad, the ugly. In that moment, in this moment, as you make your list, you decide if your loading dock is open. You decide if you want to let that opinion in. And as you know, the ultimate arbiter, right? You know, the ultimate say. Does it help in terms of tapping into your all-natural being? In terms of releasing your inner superhuman? Or does it hurt? Thumbs up, thumbs down. I want to go back to number 5 on the list. I wish I had let myself be happier. And if the early morning meme this morning is true, and I believe it to be, that inauthenticity always creates unhappiness. So don't be a knockoff. If that's true, then number 5, I wish I had let myself be happier. She says in the article, this is a surprisingly common one. Many did not realize until the end that happiness is a choice. Well, if the meme's correct, then authenticity is a choice as well. So when everyone says, well, what am I going to have to do to be happy? It just escapes me. I don't know what I have to do. In this moment, be authentic. Write down on the list. Take out your little flip card if you still have it, right? Your little notepad. What are the top 10 things, let's just say? It's popular to go, what's the top 10? Top 10, top 5, whatever you want. What are the things you could do right now to start being authentic? The article says they stayed stuck in old patterns and habits, right? Didn't look for the rabbit hole, stayed stuck in a pigeonhole. The so-called comfort of familiarity overflowed into their emotions, as well as their physical lives. Fear of change had them pretending to others, and ultimately to themselves, that they were content, when deep within, they longed to laugh properly and have silliness in their life again, end quote. Isn't that amazing? They longed for silliness or wildness or authenticity. What could you do right now for the next 20 minutes on your list to reintroduce yourself to that authentic whisper, that organic, all natural, no additives, no preservatives, no food dyes being that sits at your core? What could you do? So in that way, When it does come time for us to do our rocking chair test, we look back and we ask the question, was I me? Was I happy enough? Was I authentic enough? Was I silly enough? Was I expressive enough? Did I have the courage to be me? I want to leave you with a thought before we run to the bottom of the hour from the psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. She says, it's only when we truly know and understand that we have a limited time on earth and that we have no way of knowing when our time is going to be up, that we will begin to live each day to the fullest, as if it was the only one we had. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because friends don't let friends fall for self-help industry tactics.
All right, we're back. I'm still going through my pictures, checking a little here, checking a little there, seeing what I can come up with. So if there's a little bit of static, apparently it has something to do with either the heat or the internet. So again, accept my apology. It's tough enough to be able to contemplate this stuff. But, kind of fitting. We talk all the time about the static quo. Got to be able to tune it out, focus on what that still small voice inside of you is trying to say. So we'll go ahead and post a link to the Guardian article, as I said, written by Brawdy Ware. There's also a related article when you go on the website that talks about how it brought her to tears to watch all these people in the moment realize that they weren't going to keep their word to their destiny. Realize that fate had done a really effective job from blocking them out. So let's not be like that. Let's not get to that moment, either at the end of our lives or at the end of the hour, and go, man, you know what? I could have been more authentic there. Now, I know there's another voice in your head we talk about, right? The nutty narrative, the dialogue, the binge thinking. That's going to say, don't listen to Brian. Don't pay attention to the idea of writing down this list. The article talked about being comfortable in our ruts. Well, we're comfortable listening to that voice. Sometimes it may be the only voice. The ego, the persona, the masks we don to fit in, we go comfortable with them. Might be the only voice we've heard in a while. I'm here to suggest, and as we say every show, give yourself 20 minutes. You're worth it. At the end of that 20 minutes, this doesn't make sense. You don't feel this, then ignore it. What's important is to be your own guru, to figure out your own path in the labyrinth, right? We talked before about Theseus in the labyrinth. Ariadne gives him the thread, so after he battles the Minotaur, he gets back out. And I've always thought of say, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. That's like Ariadne's thread. You're going to get the guidance when you pay attention to the clues, the tips, the cognitive cairns that are in the moment. And the monkey narrative in your brain, right? The crazy dialogue going on doesn't want you to know that. Because it's comfortable controlling you. It's comfortable having hijacked the remote and making you subject to the pictures that it wants to show in your mind. That's what it does. But you deserve your best thinking. You deserve to be able to get to this final moment, asking yourself, was I me? And go, you absolutely know that I was. I brought the A game. I brought my full potential. I ignored the critics. Talk all the time about courage. What's the real definition of courage? Being yourself. It's not easy being authentic. We say all the time. This stuff is simple, 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 right? No reason to write 47 self-help books as it pertains to it. Simple stuff. Doesn't make it easy. It takes courage. It takes bravery to be able to even make this list and refer back to it and to be honest with yourself. Some of the most enlightening, I love this term enlightenment, some of the most enlightening times have come to me in the mirror. When you're forced to look yourself in the face, look yourself in your eye and go, really? This is the gig? This is how life is supposed to play out for me? And then decide, am I good going for this ride, or am I going to retake control of the cockpit? Because the people that are happiest are the ones that are the most authentic. Look around. You know how to do this. You know exactly what it's going to take. But that little voice inside of our heads go, don't do it, don't do it. There's a lot of uncertainty in it. Well, of course there's uncertainty. That's what authenticity is. I saw a post this morning on Facebook. I think it was a Jackson Pollock quote that says he never worries. It was something to the effect of he didn't worry about trashing a painting midway because once he started, he knew the painting would play itself out. Same with you and I. Once we start down that path of the labyrinth, once we know for sure that we can reconnect with our all-natural being, it's fired up about reconnecting with us. And all it asks is that you pay attention in the moment to your own authenticity and to realize that your mind was built to stand out, not to fit in. You have examples of when you kind of corralled that belief in yourself just because you wanted to conform, you wanted to be able to fit in? Put it on the list. Put down those things on the list that are keeping you in check. Again, I said you're never going to show this list to anyone, so be honest with yourself. What are those things keeping you in check? 331-684-SOUL, S-O-U-L, 331-684-7685. We're talking today on All Natural Being about what it takes to be authentic, because the root of all unhappiness is inauthenticity. Don't be a designer knockoff. Don't live a plagiarized life. Live your life. Don't worry about fashion. Focus on the style that is unique to your soul. Because that's the key to all happiness. Not running around, not looking for it in all these other ways, all these other places. Take the high road. That's why so few people are on it anymore. Take the high road. Say to yourself, no, I deserve to have my best thinking. I deserve to have my best being. Are you living it right now? You might very well be. I don't know. There might be areas where you say, oh, I could absolutely do this. I don't need it in every area of my life. God love you. But there may be those areas where making this list is going to help. So let's kick this around. What are some of the ways you could start to be authentic right now? Read an article about the other day about a lady who took up ice skating at like 45. Is she ever going to win an Olympic medal? Probably not. Is she having the time of her life? Absolutely so. Never going to win a gold medal, but she gets up every morning, goes to the rink, straps on her skates, has the time of her life. What could you do? If you wanted to have the time of your life, what would you do for the next 20 minutes? Where would you go? What specifically would you do? Put it down on your list. What would be those things that you go, yes, this is absolutely something I would dig? You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to move to a cave, right? We're talking for 20 minutes. What could you do right now to make sure your inner superhuman has a chance of speaking to you, that your all-natural being has a chance of bubbling up? Because once you tap into that unimaginable power of living in the present moment, right? That's what we hear now, the power of now, Eckhart Tolle. That's when the real magic comes. That's when your authenticity understands that you're in it for the long haul now. You're going to take the high road. You're going to dovetail your heart and your head and make this work. So look at your list. As we continue to kick this around this morning, throw some other things down. What are those things keeping you in check? And what are those things that would ultimately just blow you away about your life? Right? That would make you just thrilled to be who you already are. Because once you make that list, that becomes a part of your labyrinth, right? That becomes a part of your roadmap. And then 20 minutes from now, because your 20-minute victories are stackable, something you can change whenever you want, you might find that what's on the list now may not be on the list later today. Again, think of it as a giant Rubik's Cube that is your life. The combination, the cipher, if you will, to your soul. Your mind's code. What's it going to take to get in there, jumble around some of these things, and see what falls out? Because you've got to know by now you were here to say yes to yourself. Not in every occurrence, not in every moment. We're not using this as an excuse to just go nuts, especially in those things that aren't healthy for us, physically or mentally. But think back to that article. They wanted to have more silliness in their life. They wanted to smile. They wanted to be happy. So the true anarchy is when we let the narrative, the dialogue, when we treat our mind like a pincushion. So on this list, what can you do to retake control of your life? (331-684-SOUL), 331-684-7685. This morning's early morning meme: inauthenticity always creates unhappiness. So don't be a knockoff. If you've ever had a chance to maybe to New York City or Manhattan, guys want to sell you, oh, I've got the real Rolex. I found it. Right? Except it's not the real Rolex. Be your own Rolex. No more bling. No more tchotchke stuff. What would it take for you to be authentic? Now, we're not going to use this list as an excuse to shame ourselves, right? Well, I would be authentic if I could lose more weight, get more hair, have more friends. None of that's true. None of it's true. This is outside of all that craziness. You can be authentic regardless of the trappings. Now, there may come a time where a part of your authenticity means you got to say goodbye to some of these trappings. But from our current perspective, you don't need to worry about that. What does it take for you to be authentic? Write it down on your list. Think about those things. Maybe there's something you've always wanted to do. Think back to your days in high school. Did you go to, let's say you went to college. Let's say you didn't go to college. Let's say you went right out and got a career. Whether college or a career, was it what you wanted? Or were you living to get someone else's yes vote? Write it down on your list. Today, as you look forward into your day, is it your day or has it already been hijacked? We say in the morning openings, it's my gig, my job, to get a hold of your head before the day does. The day you have planned right now, the day you're contemplating, is it yours or someone else's? Then you can decide, all right, is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Keep the good. Marginalize the bad, and absolutely get rid of the ugly. How else could you be authentic? Maybe put down on your list some of the things that you've done in the past that have blocked you. Not just the people, but some of the things that you've done. And the key to this list is just to making sure that you're honest with yourself, right? No one else has to see it. What are some of the things you've done to keep yourself in a vault? A vault where someone else has the combination. Someone else has the keys. You look at the way people petition celebrity, always looking, always fascinated by what these people are doing. If you look at any celebrity, pick anyone you want, you'll notice that their level of authenticity is off the charts. So even subconsciously, that's what we dig about them. All right, we're going to run here. We'll be back. What does this little one say here? Oh, we'll be back in like 11 seconds. Stand by.
You're listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy. Because it's never too late to take your life back.
All right, speaking of taking your life back, I'd love to be in the position to take back an internet connection that's working for us this morning. So I apologize for the static, some of the drops that I'm getting a text about now, but we'll keep working on it. I can't stay like this forever, right? What do I say all the time? It's not going to kill us. All right, so in our final 15 minutes this morning, I want to focus a little more on our lists. All right, I want to focus a little more on what we can do right now to release that sense of inner authenticity. What are the blocks? And what are the pathways, right? What kind of keeps us in check, and what can we hip check? How can we get out of our own way to allow that authenticity to present itself? What can we do? We also don't want to use this as an excuse to go, well, if I achieve everything on my list today, right? We don't want to treat this like another carrot at the end of a stick. This is a list for you to decide. Have I been on vacation, right? Long enough. Is it time for me to take the lead in my own life? Time for me to negotiate the lefts and rights, the ups and downs, the pivots and the swerves, the cul-de-sacs of the labyrinth. Am I going to be the lead investigator when it comes to the fingerprints of providence, right? The divine, however you define it, leaving those clues, those cognitive cares behind for you. If one pops to mind as we're discussing it, write it down on the list. What are those things keeping you in check, holding you down and back? Or, opposite side of the list, what are those things that you can do right now? Let's compare it to this. You know, we hear all the time that we need to burn calories. So we get some exercise, right? Because a calorie is just a mathematical equation that dictates how much energy your body requires in order to go through a particular range of motion. So in order for you to do, say, a push-up, your body's going to require so many calories in order to be able to complete that push-up. So in terms of our thought experiment, think of the philosophical calories. So if we really want to go on a diet, put on our list those calories that we can start to shed right now. What are those junk thoughts? Some of that binge eating that we do. What can we pair? What can we burn? Yeah, I got to go to the gym, hop on the treadmill, burn some calories. Great. So here's the way you can burn some calories. Just sitting on the floor, sitting on your couch. No charge, right? What are some of those calories that you can burn right now? The more you burn, the thinner your mind gets. The more calories you exercise, the sharper you're able to think. What are those things that block you from being authentic, that block you from being happy? If you're just joining us, we were talking a little bit earlier about the article written by a nurse, Brawdy, that discussed the top 5 things she saw from people on their deathbeds. Top 5 regrets. My mind instantly focused on number 1. I wished I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. Are you currently living the life that others expect of you? Or are you running the ship? Put it down on your list. Let's think of another way that you could be authentic. May not be a physical way. Is there a book you want to read? Movie you want to see? How about art? I'm really fascinated by this. Some friends have been talking to me lately about adult coloring books. Still creativity. Is it possible that there's something you need to create? Something you need to color? Something you need to sculpt or mold? And it doesn't have to be with a paintbrush, right? It doesn't have to be with a lump of clay on a potter's wheel. It could be some other way of being creative. But here's what we know about creativity. Here's what we know about neuroplasticity. We're never too old to rejuvenate our neurons, to reconnect the bonds between them. And we do it by living at the cutting edge of our minds. If it's new to you, it's an adventure. So what could you do? Put it on your list. What could you do in terms of that creativity right now to go ahead and release that all-natural being, to release that inner superhuman? Because that's what you're there for. You weren't sent here to be a couch potato. You most certainly weren't sent here to be unhappy, lethargic, amnesic. We said in the open, no more blind spots. We're boycotting BS. Also be helpful if we could boycott static today, but that'll be for the technical wrap-up after the show, right? But we're boycotting BS today. Not just the BS other people feed us, but the BS we feed ourselves. Ultimately, even if you say, well, there's a lot of people around me, Brian, feeding me, you still got to open your mouth. I'll tell you a personal little story. Probably shouldn't. But you're right, I have no filter, so I'm going to. When I was a little boy, my mom raised, really little, my mom raised 5 kids. And I remember she had an album. This was back in the day where people had record players. I remember she had an album that she would play from Albert Goulet, as a big-time singer back in the day. And one of the songs he would say is, I would march into hell for a heavenly cause. And in my house, my mom would allow us to cuss. We just weren't allowed to, saying the word hell was not a good thing. It's not going to happen in front of her. So taking full advantage of the alibi of saying, look, I'm sorry, I'm just singing along to the song, right? I was a smart aleck early on in life. Every time that song would come on, you'd hear me, I didn't know any other words, but I would belt out, march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I think probably like the second time, my mom was a pretty sharp woman, the second time she had enough of my shenanigans. She decided she was going to wash my mouth out with soap. God love her, back in the day, that's what you did when your kids cussed. You find some way of going, I'm going to anchor in his mind or her mind that they shouldn't do that. Well, I'd reached a certain age, what about like 2nd grade, maybe 3rd grade, when I'm trying to pull this stuff. And so I would grit my teeth. I would close my lips really tight, so that she couldn't get the bar. It was Dove. I still can't look at a bar of Dove soap without, right? But I was strong enough to purse my lips and to lock my jaw. But I can still to this day remember my sister running and getting going, oh, that's okay, Mom. Don't worry. I'll go get you some soap. And I'll never forget my mom said, I'll fix you. You think you're smarter than me? And she got a bottle of Squirt dishwashing liquid. Well, you can imagine, you can lock your jaw, right? You can purse your lips pretty good. But when she put that little nozzle from the Squirt liquid dishwashing soap, whatever it was, she could crack open just like the corner lip of my mouth, and she could squirt the soap right in. So there was nothing I could do to keep my mouth, right? I blew bubbles for like an hour after that. I never sang that song again. I don't even know what happened to the album after that. But my mom was able to figure out a way to get past my defenses and pay me back for cussing. And I guess the reason that story jumps to mind is don't let anybody squirt this stuff in your mouth, right? You don't have to accept it. And they'll find really crafty, creative ways of getting in, right? Of leaving their pin in your inner pin cushion. Just like my mom figured out how to squirt the soap in. But as we grow, we don't have to ingest that stuff. We don't have to let other people's vote mandate our day. Because in order to be authentic, in order to be, dare say, radical, or what was it in a past presidential campaign? Oh, I'm a maverick. I'm a maverick. Here's the thing. If you have to convince yourself a maverick, you're not a maverick. If you have to convince yourself a radical, you're not a radical. Do you know why? Because radicals very seldom tell you they're radicals. At least not the type of radicals we're talking about. Again, we don't want this to become something else that's going to be hijacked, another carrot on the end of the stick. Because if your ego's running around bragging that you're a radical, it's not your superhuman. It's not your all-natural being. It's your ego talking. So don't let anyone squirt this stuff in you. Don't swallow it. Right? Boycott the BS, both inside and outside. That's the key to an authentic life. And we've talked before about the difference between fashion, right? Everybody doing it. Between fashion and style. Your soul has its own style. That's authenticity. Trying to fit in with everyone else's fashion. How does that make you authentic? How does that make you authentic? On your list, what can you do right now, even as we get ready to run out of here? What can you do right now to unleash that inner authenticity? Because if you're unhappy, chances are pretty good. You've got it stymied. You've got it blocked. You've got it blunted. What can you do right now, next 20 minutes? To get off your own back, to get out of your own way. Remember, we don't accept any loading at the loading dock here between a certain time. Don't take anyone else's BS. What can you do right now for yourself to reconnect with that all-natural being? Because you deserve it. And even if the voice has convinced you all these years that you don't, it lies. You and I both know that. The narrative, the dialogue that we buy into, both exterior and interior. Not a fan of superhumans for the most part. They're fans of treating everyone else like a king and a queen, right? A rock star. But you deserve that. You deserve to be your own rock star. You deserve to work the red carpet. Because your soul is here to steal the show, to wow the world. No two ways about it. I want to thank the people, as always, at Metropolitan Co-working, home of 14 Blends. Thank my friend Jim for stopping by, and everybody on Facebook. Golly, people have been so nice in terms of the different things that we discussed, so I want to make sure that I shout out to those people who are leaving the posts, leaving the comments. If you have a birthday today, happy birthday. I just see that popping up on Facebook as well. We're going to go ahead. I'm really going to work hard all weekend because, to be honest with you, I'm digging this. Right? This is day 11. Day 11. So I'll figure out what this static is about. I'll figure out what this cable's plugged into. How we can do a better job on Monday morning. But I'm really having a blast, and I could only be doing it. You know, we're the number one show on IPMNation.com. Number one show since the debut. And it's not because of what I say. It's because of what you all do. The city's growing. The number of cities that are moving up on the list of listeners. It's all thanks to you. So I want to just mention again, so we get out of here, this is a part of me being authentic. I'd never done a radio show before, right? Never been the host. I've been a guest, never been a host. So how could you unleash your inner superhuman? What could you do? Spend the weekend thinking about your own authenticity. Not the plagiarized version, not a piece of plastic fruit, but the real you. And what can you do to let it out? All right, we're going to run. I'm going to figure out this audio problem. Thank you for sticking with me. Hey, we talk about the static quo all the time. Got to get through it. Talk to you on Monday.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
IPMNation.com.